Looks like we had to loop it just one and a half times, just
A
so
little bit of
everybody
a
was
glitch there, a
ready.
little bit of a glitch there, but you know what? It's Friday the
Little,
13th. It would be Friday the 13th without a glitch, eh? It's fine.
he's blaming his own
I'm
technical
blaming you. I'm blaming you for
ineptitude.
giving me the responsibility of doing all the video introduction stuff. But hey,
So
it's
so
fine.
I okay. Listen, look, we're off to a flyer already. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the inaugural episode of Across the Pond, and as you can see by the very blatantly obvious branding, this is an American-based football show, isn't it, Abby? And it's not just the branding; it's the time slot as well, isn't it?
It is, and maybe we don't want to emphasize American too much, considering our football club and where it's at, and how many
Oh,
people want
yeah.
FSG out right now. But yeah,
Hmm.
it's look, it's our first show, our debut show across the pond. We're looking forward to it. We're going to bring some great insight. Evan brings the statistical data, the information, and I bring the odd little sort of fact and waffle as I do. But yeah, no, we're looking forward to this. And yeah, how you been? Friday the 13th. What a day to kick it off to, Evan.
What a day to kick it off! I didn't realize it was Friday the 13th until I was already out earlier, having a good time. And the time slot is unique. I've done everything I could possibly do with a Friday already, and then I get to cap it off. A little nightcap is across the pond, and it's with one of my favorite people, Blue Chip TV, Blue
Oh,
Chip
nice.
LFC.
Thank you.
You
Thank
know,
you so
he
much.
goes by many names, but I'm extremely excited to kick this off. There's a lot to talk about, and I think, Avi, you're correct to point out that I don't want to emphasize the American element too much, given the current temperature of how things
And we
stand.
also want to broaden our horizons. So obviously, like it's 11 p.m. PST time. I know in India it's around, I think, 12 o'clock in India. So like it's going out everywhere. All around Asia. We are trying to get our word out. Please like and subscribe to Born and Red, ever growing. We want to hit 10K before the end of the year. We just want to like bring good content, and they've given us the opportunity, given me, Evan, the opportunity to do a show bi-weekly, a month. But here we go. We've got some comments already, but we're gonna get to, Evan, the first sort of topic of discussion. We had to rearrange it a little bit. I did want to touch upon I wanted to touch upon the Manchester derby, but before then,
Hmm.
Jurgen Klopp had a presser today.
He did.
A press conference. Don't want to say presser. I think that's a bit cringy. So he had a press conference. Carl Markham asked him a question about investment, about the need for a midfielder, and he snapped. There's no two ways about it. Jurgen
Hmm.
snapped, and he said, "Look, this is getting regurgitating. This is getting very tiresome. Every single fucking day, you're asking the same questions." And he was frustrated. He was agitated, and he said, "Look, what do you want me to do? We spend what we earn, literally, and there's nothing in between. There's no like free money sitting in a bank where I can say, okay, I like this player, I want that player, I can go and get him." He seemed rattled. He just seemed a little bit deflated. I did tweet it earlier. He looked a bit deflated, defeated, looked tired. Your thoughts, Evan? Did you catch any of it?
Well, I don't need to watch the entire press conference to tell you that it paints a portrait of a man under pressure, a man stressed out about the current situation of the football club, both on and off the pitch, and a man who's tired of getting, like he has said, the same questions, just season after season, year after year, and he seems to be getting asked these questions on a every other day, so to speak. So although I disagree with things, the ways the football club has been run, both things under his control and things under FSG's control, I haven't always agreed. I do sympathize with him because he is not going to change his public tune. He's never been the type of manager to throw his bosses under the bus. He's never been the type of managers to throw his players under the bus. So why would that change now? Like even if hypothetically speaking, he's lying to us about investment in the money available. He's never going to change his public tune. So what people hope to get out of these press conferences, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, journalists are there to ask the questions and get a reaction and get quote worthy quips for their publications and websites. So I don't blame the journalists, but for the people, for the fans, the ordinary people who expect to get something from these press conferences, when's the last time you were told what you wanted to hear? from Jurgen Klopp in a press conference.
Oh, it
I
never
don't
happens.
get why
It never
people.
happens. But he also
Yeah, yeah,
he also gives the reporter what they want.
yeah,
The reporter
yeah.
got what he wanted. Whether Carl Markham was a Liverpool fan, I'm not even sure. You know, he's a top journalist, but he got what he wanted. He got the reaction he wanted. You know, and all the other sort of tabloids, journalists, they got what they wanted from Klopp, which was him, you know, biting back. And you know, it's a hard one because Evan. Look, it is getting frustrating. It is getting
Hmm.
frustrating. The same questions being asked, and us fans are living in hope that we will get a midfielder in. You know, there's been talk of Caicedo and whatnot, and other midfielders. Oh, there's a deal for Mateus Nunes getting completed in the summer, but it's the here and now that we need addressing, and it just seems that Klopp. I think this question will come at him again and again, Evan. I think it's
Yeah.
not going to stop only because yesterday he said these are 6,000 times that I'm speaking about it. There's gonna be next week where a question comes. If tomorrow it goes haywire again and he goes hits up and we lose against Brighton, God
Hmm.
forbid that situation, that question will be addressed again in the post match and saying, "Listen, Klopp, is it a midfield issue?" And he's gonna work around it and try to deflate from it and detract people saying no, it's not a midfield issue. He'll blame it on other things and other circumstances. But where do we go from there, Evan?
It's tough to say, and I will say that the reason I think he is getting asked these questions is because the journalists are obviously taking the temperature of the fan base and just sort of the temperature of the footballing world in terms of how people are perceiving Liverpool. And we as fans and neutrals just viewing the club, we don't know what tomorrow will bring, both in terms of results, ownership, direction. Things are very much untethered, floating through space right now. There's no clear, picture of what the next 6 months looks like for Liverpool. Will FSG still be here? Will they not? So the journalists have to ask these questions because nobody has any clarity or information. It's been so long since we had any sort of public update from FSG on the sale of the club. So that's why they're asking the questions. And perhaps that's why Jurgen feels like he's getting these regurgitated, quips from the journalists and, the wider fan base. But in terms of where we go from here, that's just been the question on people's lips in multiple facets, not just in terms of what's happening on the pitch, but off the pitch as well. And until we string together good results and or the club is sold, I think we will continue to wonder what direction we are headed in the widest possible sense.
If this drags on, right, and we'll talk about what we've heard this week as well in terms of a supposedly bid from the Middle East and whatnot. But if this drags
Hmm.
on into at the end of the season, going into the summer, where we've had to as a club, don't know who'll be pulling the strings and the deals and who'll be, negotiating for the club, as there is no sporting director. And we've heard a few names that we won't say, but of people that may come in. But is there a situation, Evan, where he turns around to his wife Sabine and says, "You know what? I'm actually done. I'm actually done. I'm tired. I'll always have the fans on my side, but maybe this isn't what I hoped." Because if you look at his body language 4 or 5 weeks ago, he was saying, "I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about the potential investment." He was talking in a place of happiness, at peace of what's coming in the future. I think he may have been told, like, look, we are close to selling. I think we will hit the ballpark figure. If people are to believe that it is a 3.5 billion pound what Henry wants, which is close to the 4 billion that he originally wanted. Is it that something's changed there? The stance has changed from that end, and he might think, you know what, after 8 years, it will be 8 years. Is this? It came in 2015. He might just say, yeah, you know what, maybe it's time to hang up and just take a little bit of a sabbatical and come again.
Well, I surely it's exhausting, mentally, physically. He's an older man who's getting older, and surely this takes its toll. It's absolutely something that plays in the back of his mind. Uh, these people. I think it's easy for us to forget just how much time Klopp has given to the sport, not just to Liverpool, but to the sport itself. It's many nights away from your family, many nights away from your children. He might have feel like he missed out on being a father, being a husband, and being a family man in certain ways, just because of how much time you give to the club. So I'm sure even when things are going well, even when Liverpool were at the pinnacle of the sport, Avi, I think it's always something that plays in the back of a manager's mind, good times or bad. Um, I feel comfortable with having some guy like him steering us through adversity, and I think if he decides to pack it in, I don't think it will be because Liverpool are not meeting his own expectations. I think it'll be for the simple reasons of him wanting to spend more time with his family. So regardless of the circumstance, basically, I think it's always something that's in the back of their minds.
And
But
and he mentioned
do you,
he mentioned last season, and I said this earlier on the season on one of the channels. I said last season it will have an impact on this season. There is
mhm,
a thing called mental fatigueness. Every great team has had it. The Chicago Bulls of the 90s,
yeah,
Pep's Barcelona team had it.
yeah, yeah,
And it seems as if we played every single game. We were on the pinnacle of doing the quadruple. It's mental
yeah,
fatigueness. It's missing out on the big two. I'm a big fan of the domestic cups because we hadn't won it, but we wanted ideally, Evan, me and you, we wanted the majors. Of course we did. We wanted the European Cup and the
mhm,
league. To lose the league on the last day, especially in the manner that we did when Villa were 2 up, and the whole Steven Gerrard, the whole sort of romance about that. And then in Paris, trying to repeat the feats of 1981 when we beat Madrid in Paris, but we couldn't do it. It was the total opposite this time. That would have had an impact on the players, but I think that would have had an impact on Klopp too, right?
absolutely. Listen, this is we played every single match available to us as a football club in the English Premier League and as a football club representing England in the Champions League. So the mental fatigue is something that's perhaps not talked about. Surely the physical fatigue is something that's always talked about. That's a high volume of football to play. But the mental fatigue of coming so close and yet being so far away, it's difficult to be mentally locked in week after week after week. So absolutely last season has bled into this one. And some of the tactical cracks that have derailed this current season, we absolutely saw them towards the latter months of the previous season. I think in our last 10 games of last season we conceded the first goal. So, and that's obviously been a hugely problematic recurring theme this season. So it's absolutely linked. And that's when people start to leverage criticism as has enough been done to refresh the squad in the offseason. And that's an entirely different conversation in itself. But I want to steer us towards the match tomorrow because we can talk about all this big picture stuff. We could go on forever because
Your
it's the
last thoughts.
cyclical discussion.
Your last thoughts on this though. You feel
Hmm.
Jurgen stays whether we get no investment or whether it's still a long drawn game with FSG and the takeover. You're confident that Klopp stays beyond this season.
Yes, I think Klopp is our manager, regardless of whether FSG are here in the summer or not.
That's what we all wanted to
I
hear.
I think he's a patient guy. I think he's willing, he's willing to stick and stay with the process. I don't think he sweats about things that aren't under his control because so much is under his control. If there are things he's allowed to leave to other people, I think he would. But shall we get into Brighton because that's obviously,
On
you
to
know, that
tomorrow's game, yeah. In less
yeah,
than
yeah.
sort of 8 hours. It is a 7 o'clock kickoff
Oh,
for
geez,
me and Evan.
Jesus,
But I know
yeah.
people out there get it worse. I know people out there, especially in Australia, Singapore, because my grandparents are from there. I know the timings are awful. And it's
Hmm.
better than the 4 a.m. kickoffs that we've got to get up to, Evan, which I'm hoping to watch the Manchester Derby. But yeah, 7 a.m. kickoff for us. It is Brighton who've hit a good amount of form. It's been a nice transition from Graham Potter to De Zerbi, who plays he plays good football. He's quite
Hmm. Yeah.
attacking, and I think we're seeing that in modern sort of Italian coaches now, young Italian coaches. They're trying to be more progressive. It's not the old sort of tactics of like 1-0 shutting it and shop like we used to see in the Serie A. De Zerbi's got a very
Hmm.
good reputation. He comes with a very good resume. There's going to be eyes on one particular player, Evan. I'm sure
Hmm.
you're sick and tired of hearing it since the start of last summer.
Yeah.
The back in the last summer into the season. But you know what? He keeps on shining. He's adding different components to his game. It is Moises Caicedo. Although McAllister's had a fantastic World Cup, Congratulations on his World Cup win with Argentina. But it is Caicedo that we will have our eyes on tomorrow, and I think we might see an absolute clinic potentially put on by the Brighton midfield against ours. Your thoughts?
Well, it's hard to see how he wouldn't have a good game against us because the matchup is so favorable. Perhaps my biggest criticism of Liverpool this season, obviously there are many, but when we were at the pinnacle of the sport, top of the pyramid, the tactic that lesser teams, with all due respect, would employ was we're going to park the bus in front of our 18-yard box, see if you can penetrate. And most of the time we would, sometimes we wouldn't. That's how teams got results against us if they could try. Nowadays, teams are, I feel, a little more emboldened. We've seen that, Forest, Brentford, even Brighton in recent seasons. Nowadays, the tactic is if you can reduce the flow of the match to 50-50s in midfield duels in the middle of the park against Liverpool, you stand a chance because they lack the pace, they lack the power. Some of their players are looking very leggy, very tired. So I think it's the type of match where Caicedo could come in and really overpower some of our midfielders. And Thiago, to his credit, diminutive in stature, but recovers the ball quite a bit. Even that could be a tough matchup for him. So if Brighton can,
how much impact? Sorry to interrupt you, and I always do this as well, and I always interrupt you while you're in your flow, but it's fine.
no,
sometimes
absolutely.
sometimes you need to be interrupted. Yeah, sometimes you need to be
Oh,
interrupted.
really? Oh, I didn't know that, but go ahead.
Caicedo, and
Mm-hmm.
look, I think there are other lingering issues in our team. I think you
Mm-hmm.
agree with that too. But Moises Caicedo, if he came to his Liverpool team this January, does he transform us immediately? I think there's an obvious answer to that. But what does he bring to this Liverpool team that we are so much starved of right now?
Not to diminish this discussion into such simple terms, but it's legs, it's pace, it's power, it's the ability to win midfield duels, it's the ability to press, it's the ability to get stuck in. Um, Thiago Alcantara is a fantastic player, but there is absolutely zero reason why he should be head and shoulders the leader at Liverpool in terms of tackles and interceptions.
Just his comment. While you're in your flow.
Yeah.
While you're in your flow, by Keshav Govender. I hope I've said that right. He will have a Virgil-esque effect on the team, like Virgil did in 2018.
This is where I would like to put a pause on the Caicedo train and urge us to have realistic expectations. For a guy being linked to Liverpool, Virgil van Dijk, people maybe forget, was already a top 3 center back in the Premier League when he came to Liverpool. His numbers at Southampton season prior were fantastic, incredible. So I do think in our desperation, in our hunger, the way we starve for a midfield signing, I think we have perhaps created a bit of a false image for Moises Caicedo. Moises Caicedo, it's worth remembering, is 20, 21 years old, I believe. If he came to Liverpool, he would be a project. He would not be the finished article. Is he the type of profile we should be targeting? I would say unequivocally yes for the midfield. Is he the player that would salvage the season and allow us to, reignite a title charge and push deep into the Champions League? No, he's not. And
I think he is.
few
No,
players are.
I disagree with you. I disagree with you. I think he is. Honestly, I get it. I get everything that you say. And like I say, Evan always brings the statistical data, the analytics, and he will prove me wrong when he brings up these mathematical, trigonometry, whatever your stats are that you bring up.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's talking about an
trigonometry.
XY graph.
Trigonometry.
He's talking about an XY graph. Okay, whatever.
Caicedo, I think we are missing a player of that ilk so badly, Evan. That I think with him, we put on a run of 10 games unbeaten. I think we go 15 games unbeaten. I think we have such a better chance. I think with him in our team, we go very, very far in the Champions League to a point. And I know I'm the most positive out there, and I can play like devil's advocate, but I think we get to the Champions League with him in the final.
Okay.
If we stick with this midfield against Madrid, if we're going with Thiago Henderson,
it's going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly. And here's the thing: I do not disagree with you, Avi. He is the archetype we should be targeting. He's the profile we should be targeting for what his standout attributes are. he would have a great effect on this team. Absolutely. But I want to continue my point by saying I think even if he were to come in and slot into this Liverpool team, I do think the tactical setup of the midfield is still wrong. It's
Okay.
still wrong. And so we would be asking the right player to participate in a midfield setup that I think is flawed.
But he would
Does that
ease.
make sense?
It does make sense, but he would ease the
Yeah.
burden on Fabinho, wouldn't he?
Yes. Yes. No. The signing of Moises Caicedo would be great, but this idea that it would be Virgil van Dijk-esque transformational is, I think, unrealistic. It's a lot to put on somebody who not too long ago was still playing in South America. With all due respect to the most domestic leagues over there. Again, I just have to reiterate, Van Dijk is a household name in the Premier League when it comes to Liverpool. Caicedo is getting there. Brighton are a team on the up. He looked good under Potter. He looks good under De Zerbi. But I do think the hype train is getting a little
Carried away.
is running. It's a little off the rails. Is I think where the hype train is going
I think
with a
that's
guy
fair.
like Caicedo. Yeah.
I think that's fair. I think we as Liverpool fans at the moment, we're living in sort of like whoever we've been linked with, we want him now. We see a few clips on the
Mhm.
YouTube, or whether we've a typical example is Amrabat. Yes, he looked very good at the World
Yes.
Cup, but a player
Yeah.
like that, if we really wanted him, we would have heard from him. We would have heard about him before the World Cup. That we've been tracking him. All these reports that came out that Jurgen's spoken to the agent, he's spoken to the player. I don't buy that myself. There may have been discussions and may have been conversations, but Amrabat, he looked very good in the World Cup, but I don't think he's a player for Liverpool Football Club. And if he is, let's see where he goes.
Yeah.
If he's still at Fiorentina end of Jan, and we know that there's not that many suitors for him. I don't even think he played that many games this season for Fiorentina. A big up to Rav Sidhu, who's tuned in. I know he's in the UK. He's tuning in. Good morning to you, mate. If we get Caicedo, he could be the player that we all felt Naby Keita could be. Yes, no?
Rob, thank you so much for tuning in. Please keep commenting. Please keep offering your thoughts. I'm going to respectfully disagree with you here, friend. I think these are separate players. So these are different profiles entirely. Perhaps what you might be saying, Rav, is Caicedo could have the impact that we wanted, a transformational impact, because Keita was supposed to transform our midfield, and it didn't end up working out because he just never fit. So if that's what you're trying to say, Rav, I agree. But if perhaps you're hinting that they are similar players, I disagree. But Caicedo aside, Avy, let's talk about Liverpool and the players that are here. In injury news we got today, multiple people saying word on the street that Darwin Núñez has picked up a knock and at the very least will not be playing tomorrow morning. So
massive blow.
what
Considering he's been Trent, of course, since he's come back from the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
But Darwin is the only one that's got a bit of fight for him. That bulldog sort of spirit. That's typical South American, like he just goes to war every game. He's doing everything he can. He's trying to create for himself. He's trying to make the runs, and he keeps on going. Massive loss for us, Evan. Massive loss. It does give us the opportunity to see Gakpo in probably a 9. I think that's my thinking, that we'll probably see Gakpo in a 9 today.
That's the question I was going to lead into, Avy. So what does a forward line look like for you? Because I think other positions are locked in. But what does a forward line look like for you?
I saw earlier suggestions this week about Ben Doak. At 17, no, not for me. Give him the minutes here and there. Bring him on when we're winning. Let him have that winning feeling. Bringing him on when we're chasing a game. The Wolves game, I kind of get it. It was a cup game. Gave him a run out. No problems there. But for me, no. It's ridiculous people wanting to start. Ridiculous. So no for me. I would go with Ox on that left. Begrudgingly, there's no one else. I would go Ox with that on the left, Gakpo through the middle with Salah on the right, and then maybe Gakpo and Salah can alternate. Gakpo can come from the right as well. He's got the pace. So that's my front three. You may suggest different. You may be a little bit riskier than I am. Your thoughts?
It's tough to say. Shout out! The big Carnage is in the house.
The big dog. The big dog.
Yeah. What time is it over there?
It's
6:25.
7:25.
7:25. Wow. Wow.
Dedication,
To have
dedication.
to have all you people, and especially the big con in the house right now, it's a good feeling. And word on the street is real quick side note for those of you who know me from GrizzCon TV as the draft guy. Word on the street is the next draft is almost done, and this information has been relayed to certain people, and it'll break every rule that the previous drafts have set. And Avi, I know you're desperate for a draft victory, so let's see if we can get you one. In the meantime, my thoughts on the forward line. Gakpo centrally speaks to me, obviously. And Gakpo is the reason that a lot of us are going to be watching. And it's the reason the Nunez thing hurts so much because the two are interlinked. You know, Nunez in what's been a dismal season has been the reason I've really watched because I want to see what our new gem up front can do. And I'm an avid Nunez supporter. I'm an avid Nunez head, if you will. Um, and so Gakpo
Does
brings that as
Gakpo does
well.
Gakpo does he feel that part where Bobby does? Will he drops back a lot? We saw it
No,
with
no.
Holland. We saw it in Holland in patches where he drops back, collects the ball, and he can progressively go forward with the ball. He's a good dribbler. Do we see that helping the midfield? Say tomorrow he starts as a 9. Do we see him dropping back like a
Okay.
bit of a Bobby? Not as deep as Bobby, because Bobby sometimes you'll
Yeah,
see in the
yeah.
center circle. Not maybe as deep as Bobby, but maybe in that sort of like in between spaces, those half spaces that you guys talk about. Do we see him those in that position? Maybe Salah coming inwards.
See, I've always been staunchly of the opinion that when Firmino leaves for pastures anew, that Liverpool are better off moving on from the Firmino role because I think Firmino as a profile is so rare. I don't think there's another Firmino on the market, and I think you would be wasting people's talent individually trying to turn them into Bobby Firmino. He's a unicorn player. You're better off moving on. So, although Gakpo will be expected to create movement like any forward like Bobby Firmino would do, I don't think he will be playing the Firmino role. I think he might be doing more. I think of what we would see from Diego Jota centrally, more of a fox in the box type player. Though to be honest, we look so devoid of ideas at the moment that I wouldn't be preferred or I wouldn't be against Cody Gakpo roaming into areas he doesn't usually roam into, just to spark something, just to give Trent a different angle to pass into, just to work the defense a little bit. So in terms of the forward line, uh, I do think I see Oxlade-Chamberlain on the left wing, which we all have mixed feelings about. Gakpo will be central, and Salah will be on the right wing. Alternatively, what else I could see is I could see Gakpo being on the left wing, Salah on the right, and us finding a different solution through the middle. I'm not quite sure what that would be at the moment, but Gakpo will undeniably be a focal point of our team tomorrow. And Avi, would you be of the opinion leading into other parts of the team? Do the other positions pick themselves in the midfield line and the defensive line?
Before we talk about the midfield, there is a comment here by Clarence Worley, avid listener, is all over the place on YouTube channels and whatnot. I'd play Carvalho as a false 9. Now I don't know if he's trolling or if he's being serious, but I want to come on to Fabio Carvalho because he's hardly had a look in since the Man City game. He did get a goal through a central position, more of a 10 on the night in terms of the goal that he scored. Came from like a 10 position.
Mm-hmm.
Clarence says he'll play Carvalho as a false 9. I can't see it myself, but does he deserve to be playing in a 10? I know we've had
I
Harvey Elliott there. More game time for Carvalho, or maybe a loan move for the next 6 months, Evan, if he feels that
uh,
his playing opportunities will be limited.
the futures of the long-term positional futures of Fabio and Harvey are I think up in the air and worth discussion. Perhaps not for this show because I think it's very long-winded and speculation based. But in terms of tomorrow, um, we don't play with the 10. We've never played with the 10 under Klopp, really. We have midfielders who press and win the ball back in positions that 10s would usually occupy. But that's just the press at work. Do I think we have been nullifying Fabio Carvalho by playing him out wide in isolated positions? Yes, we have. That I don't think that is his long-term positional future. And I think a similar case could be made for Elliott in that right central midfield slot. Um, it's difficult to say. It's really difficult to say, Abby.
I want to see,
I do.
I want to see Carvalho fill out a little bit more. I want him to go in that gym and fill out a little bit more. I think he's got speed. I think he's deceptively quick. I think he's quicker than Harvey Elliott. And
Yeah.
I feel that Carvalho is more suited to this team. Maybe not now, than Harvey Elliott. Everyone knows my thoughts on Harvey Elliott. Your thoughts are very, very different to how I feel, which is fine. Your points are valid, just as mine are. I just want to come into a super chat, and we'll get onto the midfield area. A super chat from Yo, what's good? Thank you so much, blessed. I don't think we should play a 4-3-3. I don't think we should try to deploy high press. I think that's exactly what Zerbi wants. We need to pack the midfield, play Gakpo and Salah up top. He's got a great point because this season, De Zerbi came to Anfield. I think it was his first game when he was appointed, or second game. Didn't show any fear. And Brighton played us off the park for the best part.
Yeah, they absolutely did. It's twice they put us off the park in Anfield in the last 12 months. They did it last season as well under Graham Potter. Here's the thing about moving players into different positions and switching up the formation. It's just not going to happen. Klopp's a pragmatist. The 4-3-3 is I don't think it's going anywhere. To be quite honest, sometimes I hear people describing Liverpool playing with like a midfield diamond. I think people are imagining things. If I'm being quite honest with you, the heat
But
maps
is
don't
that where he
suggest
needs to
that.
be more daring, though, Evan? Does he need to be more
Sure,
daring?
sure.
Pep
Fair
is
point.
imaginative. Pep thinks in his Pep has this intellect where he will try different things. Sometimes it backfires. The Champions League final against Chelsea, not playing Rodri, criminal, absolutely criminal. But he's done things like Philip Lahm at Bayern Munich, deployed him in a central midfield position. He was only 5'6". I love that about Pep Guardiola. And I think that sets him away from the rest. Obviously, him and Klopp, 100%, they're the elite. But he tries things, and if it pays off, it pays off. But with Klopp, he's very stuck. We played the 4-2-4, maybe 4-4-2 this season in patches. Rangers away, if I'm not mistaken. He's tried the 4-2-4 at the Etihad in that injury-ravaged season when we had all the centre-backs missing. Done well for the first 25, 30 minutes. Do you want Klopp to be a little bit more creative? Is this where Pep Linders and Andres Krawietz should be in his ear, giving him more ideas, more thoughts, more suggestions?
Here's what I will say about Klopp's pragmatism, generally speaking. I do think it is a strength. Like in some cases, being a pragmatist. Pep Guardiola is a pragmatist as well. In a different sense of the word. He emboldens those qualities as a manager as well as Klopp. And I don't think we've ever looked as good as we have as the 4-3-3 at its peak. I think the Klopp 4-3-3 at its peak is I think where we've looked the best with multiple iterations of players. With the Coutinho, Firmino, Mane front line, with the famous front line of Mane, Firmino, and Salah. And I do think it's looked good with the likes of Diaz and Jota getting involved more often in the last 2 years as well. I like Klopp's pragmatism, and I want him to keep parts of it, while at the same time being open to new ideas. And perhaps these things are more off the pitch sort of things as well. Different recruitment philosophies, different philosophies when it comes to loaning players, or certain philosophies in terms of where he's playing them. It's tough because my dad said this to me recently, and it stuck with me. He said something along the lines of, we can't love Klopp's pragmatism when it works. We can't love Klopp for who he is when results are good, and hate him for who he is when results are bad. You have to take Jurgen Klopp for who he is at face value. So, and that's where all roads lead to. You know what I mean? When it comes to frustrations as a supporter, it's like, well, do you want Klopp? Do you want to keep Klopp here? Well, you kind of have to deal with it a little bit. You're allowed to disagree. I want people to disagree and say perhaps you should be taking different risks tactically, or different risks off the pitch as well. But long story short, Abby, I like his pragmatism. I just want him to wield it a little bit differently, or in ways that he used to. I'm going to give you how I would set the midfield up, and you can tell me how you would set the midfield up as well. I think Thiago and Fabinho obviously select themselves. The real question is, what are you doing at right central midfield? Now, Harvey Elliott doesn't convince many people, including you. I know you don't think of him as a midfielder, and you'd want to see him played somewhere else. I think, when Liverpool are in full flow and Liverpool are in control of a match, then obviously playing sort of an attacking midfielder winger hybrid like Harvey Elliott works in midfield because you're in control of the match. Obviously, we don't control matches anymore. So more often than not, games are reduced to presses and duels, and often, in our history this season, unsuccessful presses and unsuccessful duels. I think when Naby Keita came on last week, I think he instantly smoked Jordan Henderson in every discernible category. His pressing was so much within minutes of coming on. Maybe it's just the fresh legs, but he forces 4 to 5 turnovers that Henderson hadn't. Wins duels immediately that Henderson wasn't winning. The curse of Naby Keita, though, is that in 3 weeks' time he's going to be injured again. That's just what history tells us. We can't ignore it. But if he's ready and fit, and as far as we know, match fit, I would play him against Brighton tomorrow or today for some of you. That's just what I would do with the midfield. So, Avy, what are you doing on the right-hand side of central midfield?
Yeah, I agree with Fabinho and Thiago. I want to put it out there. I think Curtis Jones may get a go tomorrow.
Interesting.
I think there's something about Klopp with Naby. I'm not sure, and there's no insight here, but maybe if an offer comes in for Naby late in the window, he might go. Although he's available for a free in the summer. I feel if Naby, he's been fit for the last 3-4 weeks, he would have started him. I thought he would have started him. I thought he was a nail on against Wolves, but he wasn't. Klopp went with the strongest 11. He wanted a reaction from the players. He didn't get one really. For me, I think I can see Curtis Jones starting tomorrow. And I know people don't want to hear that, and people are saying, "Oh, Abby, you're sticking with this blind faith with Curtis Jones yet again." And it is blind faith because I don't think there's anywhere else we need to go. Ideally, we need to bring in a midfielder in, but with the choices that we have, yeah, Fabinho, Thiago, and even Fabinho, he looks short. He looks very leggy. Last week, Mateus Nunes comes on, and there was an instance where Henderson and Fabinho are trying to press him, and he just seamlessly, effortlessly just got away from them. Didn't even need to accelerate. He just got away from them. A little, a drop of the shoulder, and he was gone. So yeah, Fabinho, Thiago, and I think Curtis Jones, just because he's got that physicality. He's 6 foot, he's a bit taller, and I think we may just need that kind of type against the midfield and the way they set up. Lallana's had a breath of fresh air under De Zerbi too. People forget that. I know we'll talk about McAllister, we'll talk about Caicedo, Solly March, and Jakob Moder, but Lallana's had a breath of fresh air. They've got legs. I mean, I'll take Lallana in our midfield, Evan. I will take a 34-year-old Lallana now in our midfield because he's got the legs. He's got the legs right now. No, I honestly believe that. I honestly believe. I want you to bring up his stats, how many kilometers he's been covering.
What we're not going to do is pretend like Adam Lallana has the legs, because
I'm telling you, he's had a breath of fresh air under De Zerbi. He's running. He's fitter than ever. Put it that way. He's fitter than ever.
And you know what, Abby? He's going to be injured in 2 to 3 months' time. That's not because I have some weird agenda against Adam Lallana. It's just the reality of his body composition. Unless they have the best sports scientists of all time working at Brighton, and if they do, fair play to them.
But
what about Bajcetic on the right, giving Trent more freedom? Definitely, I'm pro fast track Stefan Bajcetic into the team. I think he looks very promising. Speaking of, when it comes to attackers, Avi, you said you maybe wanted Fabio Carvalho to fill out a little bit more. I'm a little anti that when it comes to attackers. But when it comes to midfielders, absolutely. Obviously, Stefan Bajcetic, he's 17, 18 years old.
18.
He will fill out. He might even grow another inch or two. So I'm in no rush to make these players fill out, but Stefan Bajcetic will have to become a little more physically imposing if he wants to be a Premier League midfielder. But all the promising signs are there. So Bajcetic, I think next season you'll see him slot into some match day squads in the Premier League. Who knows? We might get surprised tomorrow and he might slot in. But I'm doing Keita. That's me personally. But
which I'm happy with. Which I'm happy with. I'm just not sure how Klopp goes tomorrow. I'm not sure which way.
Yeah, exactly. When people try to predict 11s, I think we get caught in between what we would do and what Jurgen Klopp would do, and perhaps people don't always understand which perspective we're talking from. But it's time to it's time to talk about a general prediction of the match. Avi, how do you see it? Like really quickly, just tell me how you see it playing out, and tell me what you think the final score might be.
I've gone for a 3-1. I think there will be goals. I'm I'm very intrigued to
3-1
see.
to who,
No,
Avi?
sorry, 3-1 to Liverpool. Come on, I've got to be positive.
Oh,
You can't be negative. You got to be
forever the
positive in this world.
optimist.
You got to be positive in this world. I think we will go. I think we'll go off to a good start. I think we'll score first. They'll get back into it, and then we'll score too late on. And obviously, the midfield area is crucial. If we can keep that tight, if they don't break away with the runners that they have, if we can keep them at bay, and our front three, more Gakpo and Salah, if they can create. Salah needs a big game, by the way. He needs a big game. He needs a big game.
Do one.
He's
Do one.
been on the sort of
It's
peripheral a few games. I know he
yeah.
scored a great finish against Wolves, but he was very, very quiet. Needs a goal from him. A good performance from Gakpo tomorrow. He looked sharp against Wolves, a few bits and pieces that he tried to knit together. But yeah, I'm going for 3-1. I'm intrigued to see the centre pairing tomorrow, the defensive centre pairing at Liverpool. I reckon he might go Konate Gomez tomorrow at the back.
Konate Gomez is definitely a possibility. I don't, as much of a Joel Matip ultra I don't think he's had a good season. Few people have.
I think he's been awful. I think he's been absolutely awful this season. But that could be he's been injured. He's been coming back into rhythm. Maybe he needs 3-4 games to get back into the rhythm. This would be his 4th game back from injury, maybe. But he's been getting away with it because of Joe Gomez. I think Joe Gomez's performance against Napoli stunk up the place a lot, and people think he's finished in that. But he came back against Man City, where he put a colossus performance against Haaland, where he got him out of the match. But then he went and made a few mistakes in the home game where the back pass to Alisson was short. So there's a comment here by Saj.
You're saying
the boss's message. Yes, I did say Jones will start. Okay. You just carry on getting ready and for your drive up to the Amex Stadium. Go on, Evan. Sorry.
Yeah. So you're saying 3-1 to Liverpool, and listen, people who follow me, people who know me, perhaps this is your first time listening to me speak. I swear I'm actually an optimist. Perhaps not as much as Abby here, but I am an optimist. I'm a glass half full type fan. I think it's going to be 1-0 to Brighton. I think we perhaps are underestimating them a little bit. It'll be a game that's won and lost in midfield. Personally, after the last 2 matches, I just don't quite see where the goals come from. I think what's really been disturbing to me in terms of our patterns of play recently is we're so vertical. We will work the ball maybe 5 yards past the halfway line and vertical pass. Liverpool used to be so dynamic. There used to be so many more discernible patterns of play.
It's very slow.
The build-up play is slow, and I would say our technical level has dropped significantly this season. And I think our post-Wijnaldum midfield that we've attempted to build requires such an insanely high technical level that any time where we're slightly off of it, we're affected. And I think a team like Brighton, how tactically reactive they are, both under Graham Potter and in a different way under De Zerbi, I think they could take full advantage of that. Perhaps it's just recency bias for me, but I'm also speaking to how the patterns of matches have played out, not just this season, but for the tail end of that season. So I'm saying 1-0 to Brighton tomorrow. I think they're a good team, and I think they're going to make life very difficult for us.
Before we go on to another subject, which is obviously the takeover news, just quickly, who takes the captaincy tomorrow? If Henderson's off away, Milner, we presume he's not starting.
If Henderson and Milner do not
does it go to Trent?
I think it does go to Trent. Could go to Salah. Obviously, that's another good candidate. Could go to Thiago, Fabinho. One thing I will say about Liverpool is that there's lots of good leadership.
If someone in the comments can let us know, Rob or Allison. Okay, if someone in the comments can confirm, I'm not sure if they would know, but if someone confirm who would be captain tomorrow, I know it's based on longevity at the club.
Might go to Robbo.
Robbo.
Now that Kashev says Robbo, I think it would be Robertson. But shall we move on to the next one?
Yes. After your negative prediction, we need to. Okay, we've got to cover this because every other channel does it. It's all on the talk of Twitter in the last 48 hours. Takeover news, Qatari bid supposedly. I've said my thoughts on it, Evan. I said that we would be sort of close to completion by end of November. Egg on my face. Happy to hold my hands up and say I was wrong. Humble enough to admit that was wrong. Qatari bid supposedly. There's been reliable outlets on Twitter. No journalist has actually confirmed, but some reliable outlets that are saying a 3.5 billion pound bid has been submitted to Fenway Sports Group, and it's supposedly been from Qatari, not QSI, but maybe another sort of investment group. I know a person, don't know his first name, but I know the family Al Thani group have been, well, I know they're not short of a few billions. So I think they might be in the running. I'm not sure. It's pure speculation. But the Qatari bid, Evan, at this point, are you in one of those positions where you just want us to be taken over where there's money to be spent? Or are you still one of those, not one of those, but are you still in the sort of field where you think, no, I still want the right owners in? And I'm not saying that Americans coming in are the right owners. You just want owners
Yeah.
purely for footballing reasons to spend money on this team to give Klopp the components that he needs to make us compete again against the very best.
Ideally, what I want from new ownership above all else is to make us a functional team. Um, Not just on the pitch. Obviously, on the pitch is the bare minimum, but off the pitch, I would like us to be a functional team again. Edwards and Julian Ward leaving in quick succession says quite plainly that things are not quite right at Liverpool, off the pitch and behind the scenes. I would like new ownership to establish strong figures, or at least, create an atmosphere where sporting directors can feel like they can thrive. Because clearly, for whatever reason, Edwards and his hand man, Julian Ward, a guy who was groomed for the job, clearly they didn't feel that Liverpool was the right place for them. And as a result, I don't think the recruitment mechanism has been as fluid, as it once was. It used to be the jewel of the footballing world, and it's no longer quite that. So from above all else, from ownership, I want a clear vision and I want functionality. People talk so much about how much money will new owners have. I'm not concerned about that. New owners coming in that are significantly wealthier than John Henry is, I think, inevitable, because John Henry and FSG have taken Liverpool to a valuation where only the hyper wealthy can afford us. You know what I mean? So um, whoever's coming in will have a boatload of cash. I'm not worried about that. For me, it's about owners that I think I want them to be hands-on, in the sense that they do the things in the back room with the reinstating of a participating and strong sporting director. That's really what I want, and I want just functionality, and I want a vision that we're all collectively working towards. And for me, where the owners are coming from, all the discussion about right ownership. For me, what's right ownership are the people that are going to give Klopp the tools he needs. And for so many people, when they hear that, they think money. But for me, it's so much more than that. It's about creating that culture again, creating, because for so many years, Avi, every athletic article that was released was waxing lyrical about how effective Liverpool were off the pitch. The recruitment strategy, the commercial strategy, all of these things was just a well-oiled machine. But obviously, the recent evidence of the last 12 to 16 months completely suggests otherwise. So I want new ownerships to bring that sort of backroom functionality back to Liverpool above all else, because that, I think, is what would set us back on a trajectory to building another Klopp dynasty.
I think you said it perfectly. I think, yes, I want owners ready to invest, bring us the best, but we also need a structure. We need a sporting director. We want we will need a new commercial director. We need a new band of men or women who will look after the off the side, off the pitch business side of things, and just let the coaches, let the manager, let Jurgen Klopp look after everything on the pitch. That's what we need. And we had that for a long time. We've had that for the best part of 4 years. Michael Edwards, Julian Ward, we had Matt Scammell as a commercial director. We made great appointment, Billy Hogan. flew over from Boston and took a more prominent role in Liverpool Football Club. We've had the best people employed. Right now, it feels as if there's some kind of disarray at board level, Evan. I think for me, I think that's fair to say. You may disagree, but it does seem as if there's no cohesiveness in decision making. It feels as if
Yeah.
we're going one way. And I'm not saying nothing on Pep Linders or anyone else who's maybe having influences in our new signings of all the players bought, but it just doesn't seem as if we're planning appropriately. Um, there's
Absolutely
one
not.
there's a
Yeah.
comment here from Dazo. Will Klopp be against a Middle Eastern takeover? I tell you why this is a good question. We know Klopp's spoken before briefly on sports washing and the whole sort of makeup of ownership and whatnot. And I don't want to speak too much on it because I don't think I'm educated enough to go in depth of it. I don't think Klopp does have an issue with owners that are coming in who want the best for this football club. If they want to give Klopp money, whatever it is, 200, 300 million to bring in the best players, I don't think he'll mind at all. I think he's had his hands tied behind his back for far too long now to argue with who the right owners are. I'm sure if it is Qatari who come in, they will come in with a vision, with a plan to make Liverpool the best football club yet again and amongst the best. That's what we want.
And I don't, I know what you mean, Dazo, but obviously not every Middle Eastern takeover is inherently going to be a sports washing operation. That's not the goal of every Middle Eastern consortium. Some Middle Eastern consortiums will feel fine with their image the way it is. They won't feel they need to run any type of sports washing operation. I'm with Avi. I don't think Jurgen walks based on what type of billionaire we're getting. And I think I speak for most of the fan base, regardless of where you stand on the question and the issue. I think we're all tired of weighing the crimes of billionaires against each other. So by all means, I just want functionality from new owners. I want clear ambition and I want clear vision, and that's really what I want. And it goes deeper than just money for me.
Last question on this before we get to my favorite part of the show that you've produced and you've created. There was a comment here by Kiship just on sporting directors, and it seems as if in modern day football, we never used to know who sporting directors were, who chairmans were, but now it's just the norm, isn't it, that we know of sporting directors. I think, especially in the last few years, Monchi to name one, Michael Edwards,
It's become a bit of a celebrity
Frank. Honest,
position
it
at
is.
the football club, hasn't it? Yeah, yeah.
Agree,
And
100%.
it's so funny. I was talking with my friend Keith, who said he was watching Moneyball for the first time, and he's like, wow, these general managers. That's what a sporting director is called in American baseball. These general managers have so much power, and I said, that's a relatively new phenomenon in your global football as well. It wasn't too long ago. We didn't even know who these people were.
Yeah.
We didn't care to know. But I think they're getting more attention in the media, and obviously notable names. Paul Mitchell, that
Is
Kashaf
he
points
is
out
he
here
one
from
name that would
Monaco.
entice you? Is he one name that would entice you?
I mean, sure. I mean, you look at Paul Mitchell's track record. I think it goes like Southampton. He's with Poch. Southampton follows Poch to Spurs. Is it Leipzig next and then Monaco? I think Leipzig is there in between Spurs and Monaco. So the track record is there. You see a lot of great recruitment mechanisms there. Tottenham have, a bit of a hit or miss rate, but clubs like Monaco and Leipzig generally very good at, bringing the right players through. Um, I'd imagine he's somebody we know from his time at Leipzig, because obviously there was a time we had a very close relationship with Leipzig, just the entire operation. And I hope we still do, because they obviously have a pool of great players constantly that we would like to shop for. But yeah, Paul Mitchell is I think the sort of the right type of candidate. The track record is certainly there, but again, you know, all these questions lead back to ownership, don't they, Abby? Because new owners might have a structure that doesn't involve a sporting director. They might have a structure that involves a very specific sporting director that isn't like a fancy name like Paul Mitchell or Monchi or any of these guys. But I think that is sort of the direction I think we should be looking at.
Fundamentally, that's what it boils down to, isn't it? Getting the right owners in.
It's all
Going
absolutely.
into the last segment of the show, so we've decided we created this midfield alternatives in the summer. So if we are led to believe that Mateus Nunes Luiz, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. I did ask one of my Portuguese friends.
Isn't it Nunes? Like it's just esh at the end
No, it's
instead of
Nunes.
esh.
It's Mateus Nunes
It's
Luiz.
Nunes.
Nunes.
So
Yeah.
so like it's pronounced like NOONCH,
NCH,
like
yeah,
Nunes.
Nunes, yeah. You won't beat me on this one.
Wow.
You won't beat me on
I'm
this
gonna
one.
Google. Keep
Of
talking.
course.
I'm gonna Google it.
So we were looking at midfield alternatives. But me and Evan had to select three midfielders. I can't choose, or we both can't choose Jude Bellingham because we want to look at alternatives just in case that doesn't happen. Mateus Nunes or Nunes Luiz will not be on this list either. And if you want to, while you're researching, we picked out three players who we think are like not the second tier or third tier, but just another list of players that we believe could come in this Liverpool team. And we'll give our reasoning to why we like the individuals that we've selected. Evan, when you're ready, this is all Evan's work, so please, he deserves the credit, not myself. Oh, look at my pretty self there with the suit. Look, I've gone with the colors as well, red, blue, a little bit of white there, brilliant. So
Yeah, the beige is a little weird, but continue.
let me take the banner off. Okay, so I went for three midfielders that I think that we could be targeting if we don't go
Mhm.
higher tier, top tier in Jude Bellingham. But presuming that Mateus Nunes is done, soccer god, I've gone for three. The first player, obviously, I'm a big fan of him, is Yunus Musa, who had a phenomenal World Cup. I thought he outplayed the English midfielders when USA played England. I thought he was dominant. A product of Arsenal. A product of Arsenal. Then he went to New York, and then he found himself at Valencia, where he's playing now. And there's a 40 million euro release clause, which would entice the big clubs. I know there's been talk of Arsenal. There's been murmurs that Liverpool are interested, and just watching. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna say interest or monitoring. Those are the two worst words when we talk about
Don't say it. Don't say it.
when we talk about Liverpool Football Club and players. But yeah, Yunus Musa is one that I think would be. I think at 21 he represents great value. He's got a great engine on him, and he can make improvements too. I call him the Tushimani clone, part two. I think he can become as good as that.
Shuameni.
Shuhameni. There you go. Shuhameni. That one? Okay, fair enough. Not Tushimani or Shumeni.
You never learned. You never learned.
I won't learn. I won't learn either. I won't learn either.
Okay.
The second player, JWP, James Ward-Prowse. I'll say it again. This guy, he would fit into this Klopp system. He would fit into this Liverpool team. Imagine when James Milner signed for us. He signed for us at 28, right? And he's got experience. He was British. We've got to address this homegrown issue. Hence why I think James Ward-Prowse, if Southampton get relegated, he would bring value, bring experience, set pieces, very similar to James Milner. He's got a great engine on him. And I think he, even at 28, 29, he goes another level under Klopp. I love him. Evan, you want to come into this?
Let me know. Is James Ward-Prowse good enough to be referred as JWP? Because in my opinion, those abbreviations are reserved to like really good players. KDB, RVP.
Okay, James.
MJ.
Okay, we'll call him Prowse. We'll call him Prowse.
Let me know. This is just a thought I had. Chat, let me know. Is he good enough to be referred to as an abbreviation? Abby, please continue. Sorry.
And he's been a captain for Southampton, brings leadership skills. For me, he fits the bill. If we're looking at, okay, look, for argument's sake, we bring in a Mateus Nunes, a Jude Bellingham. We need a homegrown player. He fits the bill for me, Evan. He really does. The third player, again, ideally, typically people might say he's top tier, is Declan Rice. I did hear alongside Caicedo, and I've only ever said that there's two players that I've heard of since the summer was Caicedo and Declan Rice. I'm not a big fan of the player before this season. During this season, though, he has impressed me a lot. He has got an engine. He is a top player. He does need a move. He does not want to be stagnating under David Moyes. And I think, depending on how his contract is running, at the end of this season. I think he's got a year to go. I think 60 million gets him. I think 60 to 70. People are saying 80 or 90, or I think David Moyes said, oh, we're looking at top money or whatever. But I think 60 or 70 million gets Declan Rice. And I wouldn't be adverse to parting with that much money for a player of that ilk. I think he's the West Ham captain too. So he's, again, another leader. I think he's a younger version of Jordan Henderson, but technically better. And I think the trajectory, I think he'll have a similar trajectory in terms of success at Liverpool Football Club. So those are my three.
Gotcha. Avi, I'll just give my quick opinion on these picks. Yunus Musa, obviously, I like the profile. I think he's remarkably flexible. I think at his tender age, he can be molded into a different type of player. He's like a winger, sort of central midfield hybrid, But I will say at times, at the World Cup, he would do something incredible. This pure fluid combination of power and skill, and it would just blow my mind. I'd be like, wow, there's a player there. And then there's other times at the World Cup where I thought he looked very raw and definitely not speaking to the highest level. But obviously he's a young kid, and that can obviously be molded. Bit of a project, but I wouldn't be against it. James Ward-Prowse, I think should Southampton get relegated, he's probably a guy who might think, yeah, it's time. It's finally time to call it quits at Southampton. And you would imagine that a lot of these sort of higher end players at relegation threatened clubs, a lot of them probably have relegation release clauses as well.
Evan,
so
Gini Wijnaldum was brought at Newcastle when they got relegated.
Shaqiri,
yeah.
Shaqiri had
Robertson, Andy Robertson.
Clauses. They all had relegation release clauses, or I don't know, all of them. Shaqiri definitely did. I believe that was confirmed by Paul Joyce. James Ward-Prowse, I'm not super sold on him as sort of a savvy, sort of like depth signing, cheeky little way to fulfill the homegrown quota while also getting a player of a certain quality. I see the wisdom behind it, like the context behind the transfer. I see the wisdom, and I'm there. Individually as a player, I'm not super huge on James Ward-Prowse, but who I am very huge on is I am a Declan Rice fan. And, he divides opinion, obviously. The Chelsea fan base is, he's so long been linked with Chelsea, and Chelsea fan base is very divided on him. That's the sort of temperature I've taken of them. But as a guy who loves the nerdier side of sports, as you've already alluded to, Abby, as a guy who loves the numbers and, analytics and things like that, Declan Rice is sort of the king of the.
Does he meet the soccer statistical metric system?
He's insane. He's insane, Abby. So I call him the king of the underlying statistic, because you throw out all the mainstream ones, goals, assists, who cares? All of the other ones, pressures, recoveries, duels won, progressive passing percentage, all of these sort of nitty-gritty midfield stats, he's just above average in every single one. He's right up there with the league's best. He's right there with Thiago, Rodri, Casemiro, all of these guys who are sort of leading the Premier League in the nitty-gritty side of midfield work. So I am a Declan Rice advocate, but he's a controversial name, undoubtedly. But Abby, those are your thoughts, and I think you've come up with three valid choices. Is it time to show mine? Here is my midfield alternative spotlight.
You know what? You've gone and just people in the chat. Evan actually stole one of my choices, which was Jacob Ramsey. Everyone knows I've been a big fan of Jacob Ramsey, but it's okay. I'll let you off. I'll let you off. It's a first show. Please, no, don't interrupt. Shouldn't interrupt when I'm speaking, but it's okay.
Other people are allowed to like the things that he likes. It's this appeal to exclusivity. You know what I mean? He sort of, it's like a hipster attitude.
Yeah,
a contrarian.
It's a very bad attitude too. It's a very bad attitude.
No, it is. It makes you unbearable. So moving on. The first name on the list is someone who might have come into your individual spheres recently. It's Manuel Ugarte, Uruguayan central midfielder for Sporting. He recently moved to Sporting. This is his first season at the club. Came straight from South America. He's a Football Manager legend. I believe in Football Manager 21 and 22. You could get him for like 4 million straight out of Uruguay or something like that. And he had this insanely high potential. So I'm very familiar with Manuel Ugarte. He's taken me to Champions League finals before in my own little fictional
Price range?
football manager world. What's up?
Price range?
Price range. Oh, let's take a different look into Manuel Ugarte, shall we? I have a visual for it. Okay, so he's 21 and plays for Sporting, Uruguayan. He's a central holding midfielder. Archetype, I call him sort of like a roaming disruptor. He sort of runs around and presses everywhere. 99th percentile for tackles, 99th percentile for tackles in the middle third and the attacking third. Now this is crucial because a guy like Wilfred Ndidi ranks in the 95th and above percentile for successful tackles as well, but they're not often in the midfield third and the attacking third. They're often in his own half, sort of camped around his own box. So it's crucial. Ugarte is a front foot sort of duelist in midfield, and I really like that about him. 99th percentile for dribbles contested, 99th percentile for dribblers tackled, 96th percentile for interceptions. This is really important because, as I've already alluded to multiple times on this show, Liverpool's biggest problem currently is we cannot win midfield duels consistently. We only have one player who can do it. It's Thiago. So here you have a guy who is a ball winner in every sense of the word, and he's a front-footed ball winner. And Liverpool are a front-footed team. And the craziest part about Ugarte is he's the 96th percentile for dribbles completed as well. Do these numbers speak to a certain former Liverpool midfielder to you, Abby? I think you know who I'm talking about. It's Gini Wijnaldum, a guy who won the ball back at such an insane rate, but was also such a great retainer of the ball.
Yeah.
It was so impossible to get the ball off of Gini Wijnaldum. But Gini Wijnaldum was not a creator, nor is Manuel Ugarte. He completes his passes, but he's not particularly ambitious with them. So for me, and I tweeted this out the other day when I posted this, Manuel Ugarte is, I think, apart from Moises Caicedo, the purest Wijnaldum successor on the market. If Klopp is aching for a return to that style of midfielder or that setup in the midfield three, this is who I think you should be targeting if guys like Moises Caicedo are too expensive or just flat out not available. So he is very much the fashionable midfielder for me at the moment.
And you've given him a rating of 4 out of 5 then.
So I've given him a rating. So 4 out of 5 takes into everything, ceiling, potential, current ability, just a very general rating. A 4 out of 5 is a very good score, reserved to very high tier players. So let's talk about the next name, a bit of a lesser known name, the other Enzo, as I call him. He's Enzo Lefebvre, plays for Lorient in Ligue 1. He has been there since he was a child. He's a product of their academy, been playing for them since he was 5 or 6 years old. And he's sort of having his breakout season. You can see he's different than Manuel Ugarte. He's a central midfielder, but he sort of floats around and does a little bit of everything.
You've used floating facilitator, you've used there, Evan.
Floating facilitator. Do you like sort of these creative archetype names? I think they're fun. It's the best part about coming up with this nonsense.
Well done.
97th percentile. See, Ibrar gets it. He gets it. That's great. 97th percentile for shot creating actions. He's a creator. This is a creator. But can I also point towards he's 90th percentile for dribblers tackled, 95th percentile for tackles won, 82nd percentile for tackles and interceptions. So he's sort of this diminutive sort of player, but he has an incredible engine and he's combative as well. So he reminds me of Thiago or Bernardo Silva in that way, guys who are full of skill, diminutive in stature, but that doesn't hold them back in a league like the Premier League. They're still able ball winners and able sort of
progressive actions is when he's dribbling with the ball. Is that another stat for
progressive actions? Is everything. Progressive actions is passes, dribbles, and successful presses in a progressive direction.
Question from Rav Lafi: is he physical enough? We have this issue with Ali at the moment.
This is sort of what I was just touching on. This is what I was just touching on, Rav. So he's a diminutive guy. He's on the shorter side. Think of him sort of as Bernardo Silva. A guy full of guile and skill and creativity, but he's a pest defensively. He never stops running, and his work rate earns him places in high percentiles for things like tackles won, tackles and interceptions. And for me, we need to win midfield duels as Liverpool as a team. That's absolutely what we need to do. So And I don't care how they're won. I don't care how big you are. Thiago is a midget, and he wins a ton of midfield duels. You know, the guy's like 5'6". So I think fair enough. This guy can be, you know, he's 5'7", so he's roughly Thiago's size, but that doesn't stop him from winning midfield duels. So he's having his breakout year. He's a very interesting player. I don't think he will cost a lot. I saw recently on the timeline today, Dortmund are speaking to him, so perhaps they've already beaten us to the punch. But I really like this player. Last on the list, Avi, you know
My
plenty about
favorite. This is
Jacob.
my favorite. So you can wax lyrical over this guy anytime, Evan. Take your time. Have a little sip of that tea.
Yeah, I've been talking so much today. Jacob Ramsey, hugely underrated player in my opinion. Now, the struggle, Avi, as you know, is that Aston Villa are not a, you know, financially
They
desperate
don't
team.
sell, yeah.
Jacob Ramsey has plenty of years left on his contract, I believe. So he's expensive. English tax on top of all that.
He has a younger brother too, who's
So
very
there's
highly rated. Evan. He's a
his
younger
younger
brother
bro.
who's
Oh yeah,
very
of course.
highly rated.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's kind of like other English players. It's impossible to get a good deal on Jacob Ramsey. He's never going to be a good use of money. English players are never worth it. You know what I mean? But Jacob Ramsey is, I think, a player who should be an alternative for plenty of clubs, not just Liverpool. I think he has sky high potential. I don't have updated numbers on Jacob Ramsey, but if you're curious, you can
I
go
think we've
search on my Twitter. I've covered him before based on last season's stats. I don't have numbers on him this season, because he was sort of a last minute addition to my midfield spotlight. I knew who my first two were going to be. I didn't know who my third was going to be, and I just love to talk about Jacob Ramsey because I think he's a player who, if managed correctly in the right situation, I think his ceiling is much higher than people think. Shout out to Abrar here, roaming disruptor, Peter Drury taking notes. Peter Drury's in the chat right now, writing these things down. I think.
I think with the Jacob Ramsey, he would be a great alternative to Jude Bellingham if we couldn't get Jude. In my eyes, I think he's very good attacking. I think we've seen how he can just push through, power through midfield. We saw him putting a great performance in at Villa Park this season against Manchester United. He for me he's top dollar. I really do like Jacob Ramsey. A few things that he can sharpen up on with any youngster, but he's a player that I've said for quite a few years now, for a couple of years, that Liverpool need to have this guy on their mind. Like if Jude is sort of like, you know, if Jude goes to Madrid or whatnot, if we can't afford Jude, this guy for 50, 60 million, I think Villa could part ways around. I think that's the ballpark figure with Jacob Ramsey.
Yeah, it's difficult though because again, another player who would very much be a project, and as you know, Liverpool needs sort of instant impacts. But real quickly, Avi, Ugarte, Lefay, do these names have I moved you with my case for them?
Lefay, a little bit skeptical. I've seen clips of him. Looks very good. Looks very nice and neat in possession. Very creative. But I think we've got players like that who can be that creative. Maybe not as durable as Enzo Lefebvre or hardworking or a pest as you called him earlier on. But I feel that we've got maybe players that we can develop, i.e., an Elliot, a Carvalho, mold them maybe like Klopp likes to do with certain players. Ugarte, I know you've mentioned him. I know Moby's mentioned him a few times. He looks good. He looks good when he's sort of cleaning up. He reminds me of a bit of a Polinia who's coming at Fulham this season, who's again effortlessly just looks a player who's been playing in the Premier League for quite a number of years. But again, you know, 27, 28, what a coup for Fulham. And Jacob Ramsey, yeah, out of all those players, including mine, Jacob Ramsey would be top of the list, Evan, for me.
I think I'm gonna stick with my Manuel Ugarte. The profile just numerically is so interesting to me. But I think that does conclude the agenda. Avi, do you have any parting thoughts with people on our inaugural show? How's it gone for you?
No, it's been great. Thanks for everyone that from UK, from look everywhere. I think South Africa, we've had a South African scouser. We've had people from Australia tune in, people from Malaysia, Thailand. It's been a brilliant show, and we're still sort of figuring out timings. We're gonna bring more of these. We're gonna do maybe bi-weekly shows. We're gonna see how much traction we can get. But guys, look, we're gonna see how it goes. We're gonna see how it grows. But no, it's been a great show. Evan, thanks for keeping us up till 12:15. I was hoping for an hour, but we've done 15 minutes over. Don't mind. Guys, thank you so much in the comments. Please like and subscribe. We're growing. Born and Red is growing. 3K is the next target of subscribers, but we want to hit 10K before the end of the year. Gene and Asim have gone to the game, so expect them to do a maybe pre-match or a post-match in their cars or outside the stadium. I'm not too sure. And then I think they've got a post-match lined up today. And then tomorrow, I'll be on the Sunday show with a special guest from the Anfield Rap alongside Asim and Sheen. And then we're going to play by ear next week's show. I'm not too sure what the agenda is, but me and Evan I think it will take us 2 weeks to get everything created again because of your sheets. And we're going to think maybe looking at youngsters next. We're going to look at under 18s, look, under 21s youngsters that we're going to look at around the world. We're going to pick 3 again, and we've got another surprise which Evan is kind of sort of mechanically engineering for us. But yeah, thanks for everyone for tuning in. Like and subscribe if you haven't. Go and follow Soccer God on Twitter. He's just gone past the 2K mark. Let's get him up to 3. Let's get him up to 4. Let's get him up to 15.
That would
20K
be nice. That would be nice.
Evan's stats, and he does put up his own posts, and he does do short videos at times to time. But go and give him a follow. But yeah, everything's good from our end, guys. Have a blessed one. Anyone that's going to stay up for the Manchester Derby, good luck. But we will be up in around 6 hours and 45 minutes. Thank you, guys. Bless. Bye-bye.